And we're live everywhere except one. There we go. All right, we are live, folks. This is the Remodelers on the Rise show. I'm your host, Kyle Hunt. I usually like to joke about, I'm a professional speaker over here and a coach consultant, but I'm actually interviewing somebody that is a professional speaker. So I probably should maybe tone it down a little bit on my bravado today. I am talking to Brian Biro. Did I nail that?
You nailed it. Points ahead already.
Okay, good. And we're going to talk about a topic called the ROI of kindness. There's as a podcaster, I get emails multiple times, usually a week, of people reaching out saying, "Hey, I've got a guest that you might enjoy having on your podcast." And somebody representing Brian reached out and kind of shared some different topics and different directions that an interview with Brian could go. And I saw this one called ROI of Kindness, and I was intrigued. And usually a lot of times I'll delete those, but we went back and forth, and here we are, Brian.
Well, I'm so glad you were intrigued, and it's great to be with you. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So we've known each other for a whole 12 minutes. We dialed in 10 minutes early, got a little bit, old friends, quick friends. And what we're going to do today is I'm just going to kind of open up by saying, Brian, this ROI of kindness. You're talking to home remodelers. You're talking to small business owners who are hustling their butts off, who are working hard to sign work, to produce work, to build a team around. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about, another thing that they need to be incorporating into their business, and might also be something that really just helps them continue to build a strong team and company. Why don't you do just a little introduction of yourself and then introduce us to this ROI of kindness? What does that mean?
Well, sure. I love what I do. I've been a professional speaker, as you say, for 30 years. Before that, I had two other careers. I was a United States swimming coach when I graduated from college and had a blast doing that. And of course, that's great practice for being a motivational speaker because you're doing it every day and their heads are in the water. So you have to learn to do it loud enough. Right. And then I was in the corporate world and became a VP of two large companies. But for 30 years, I've been doing this work that I love. And in the last couple of years, I've had this passion, this burning desire to try to make a difference in cultures and bringing in a higher level of really this kind of elusive thing that we call kindness. I've never felt a greater need on a societal basis and a business basis. And the ROI of kindness, ROI means return on investment. So the focus is, how does kindness impact business? And I'm going to ask all your viewers a question and answer out loud wherever you are. What color is a yield sign? Kind of a goofy question out of left field. And I've asked that close to 750,000 people around the world in my events, 1,800 events. And almost all of them say yellow. Well, they're red and white. They're upside down red and white triangles. And everybody goes, "Oh,
no, you didn't put me on the spot there, but I would have said yellow."
Yeah, I didn't want to embarrass you, so I was
yes, I mean, that's appropriate. Now listen, this is my show. I'm the host with the most here. That was a good call for you not to embarrass me in front of my people.
But
I would have said
never get an invitation back if I don't do that.
I would have said yellow.
So the reason I asked that question is that we've seen thousands of yield signs. We see the same yield signs every day. We drive a similar route. In the same way we see our business every day, ourselves every day, our team every day, our family every day. And yet, so we've seen thousands of yield signs and we haven't seen one of them for what's right in front of us. And that question is why. And here's why. Almost everyone I know uses their memory to see instead of their vision. And when you use your memory to see, you see what was, you don't see what is and could be. And that's where the whole concept of the ROI of kindness comes, because there is a memory that we have. Most of us have been conditioned to believe we all want kindness in our lives. We want to have kind relationships. We want to have kindness with our customers, with our team. But a lot of people have been raised with a yellow yield sign that says kindness is weak in business. Kindness has no place in business. You got to be tough. It's dog eat dog. And that's the way you get ahead, is you got to just be rough and tough, and kindness has no place. Well, as much as that red and white yield sign opens your eyes, the whole concept, the ROI of kindness, opens the eyes to the power of really building kindness into your core culture. And culture eats strategy for breakfast, because culture allows you to scale, allows you to build. When you think about it, all the remodelers watching your show, how do you differentiate your business? How do you create what every one of you wants? And that is consistent word of mouth, incredible referrals, so that you're not having to spend a ton of money to market to get yourself out there. In other words, business coming to you. And one of the most powerful truths is that kindness is perhaps the most powerful centerpiece upon which to build a culture.
Interesting. Kindness is say that last one.
Kindness is probably the most powerful central anchor or centerpiece upon which to build a successful culture, a culture that builds referrals, that builds word of mouth. I'll give you an example of how impactful it can be. Everyone in business knows that one of the big costs, and no matter what business you're in, if you have a team, is turnover. Is having to replace people. And it's not just the cost of having to retrain them, to hire them, to go through the time it takes, but you also got to bring into your conceptual thinking, how much of an impact does that have on your customers? To have somebody who is more confident, more skilled, better with people, who you've trained, who's built up that ability to really represent your organization well. So there's huge costs, some of which are easily viewed and some of which are almost hidden, but probably just as much or even more important. I'll give you an extreme example. The industry that has and this is in the book, industry that has the biggest level of annual turnover is quick service foods, fast foods. All right. The average annual turnover in the fast food industry is 170% per year, Kyle. That means they have to turn over almost 2 times every year. There are 2 companies that have focused their culture, centered it upon the concept of kindness. Kindness in the way they reach out to customers, and kindness the way they treat one another. And that's Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. And the stories from both of those companies are like endless. I mean, from a guy at Chick-fil-A having somebody drive through the drive-through and forget to take their change, keeping that change for a week in an envelope rather than putting in his pocket or back in the till, handed it to him when they come back the next week, and the guy's like, "What?" And think of how many that guy told him. Anyways, so 170% annual turnover in the industry. Those 2 that have a centerpiece, a focus, what we'll call a kindness value proposition, as a core of everything they do. That means it's in their training, it's in their orientation, it's the way they acknowledge and appreciate their teammates. At Chick-fil-A, the annual turnover is 14%, and at Starbucks is 24%. In an industry where there's got to be turnover because there's a lot of young people kind of making their way through, going to school. 14 versus 24% versus 170%.
So the centerpiece, the focus, the core of everything they do is kindness. And then the next thing that you start to think about, and you're starting to unpack it a little bit and give examples, is well, how do we embed this? How do we do this? It's not one answer. It's what you started to say is like, it's everything they do. It's every interaction. It's the client interaction. It's the way that we train our employees to talk to each other. It's in the way that we resolve conflicts. It's in the way that managers approach an employee with good or bad news. It's in the, like you use the phrase, it's kind of it's in the fabric. It's who we are.
It absolutely is. It becomes the DNA, and that's what you want. But that's what a culture is. A culture becomes your story. And if you think about it, we've had a lot of remodeling done in our homes. We have Airbnbs and we have our home. What I remember most, I mean, what differentiates is the kindness and the relationship we built with that remodeler. I mean, the work is it's the same thing like in healthcare. In healthcare, you expect to get good clinical care. I mean, that's why you go to a doctor. Mm-hmm. But what makes the difference and what makes you really want to go back to that doctor? It's not the clinical care, it's the human care. And it's the same thing in remodeling. It's how does that person make you feel? How does that person interact with you? How does that person do the simple little ways that, see, it's one thing to say kindness, but I want to unpack what delivering kindness really is. And that's why
hold that. That's going to be the next big thing. Delivering kindness. I have to just check something real quick. Our main feed, which is my private Facebook group, unfortunately is saying we are having trouble streaming to Facebook, but the recording's fine. And people will have to maybe catch it on the podcast or catch it elsewhere. With that said, we did have a comment that just said, "I totally said yellow out loud." Back to that yield sign. But I want to go back. I took a couple notes on a couple things before that next question that's kind of begged is like, well, how do we deliver kindness? This is great. This feels good. This is right. But getting back to a few things, you had mentioned, we want to have this as a core focus of our company, because this is where happy clients refer and they come back for more business. And I think everybody can wrap their head around that. One that I want to just have you itch a little bit more is, remodelers right now aren't having a lot of trouble generating business. Their biggest pain point is in developing a team of A players, of people that excel at their job. And I think this culture of kindness, and we'll unpack it some more, for remodelers is even more important for the culture and the team building. And when you've got good culture, it attracts like-minded people, attract other like-minded people. Can you unpack that a little bit more? And then let's get into that. How do we do this?
Absolutely. You nailed it, because that's why I brought up the concept of brought up those statistics on turnover. What causes employees to want to stick with you? Because there's going to always be a learning curve when you get new people in. What you want is get through that learning curve, get confident, get skilled, represent you fantastically well before they leave again. Now, how do you do that? People don't leave. Many people say, well, why do people leave organizations? Why do people leave your remodeling company? And most people think it has to do with money or benefits, and that is not the truth. The truth is the way that they feel they are treated within that organization. All right. In other words, it's the kindness, it's the relationship you build with those people that elevates loyalty, elevates a desire to go the extra mile. In other words, I'm not just going to put my time in and leave today. I want to do a great job because you make me feel every day that I'm valued, that I'm important. When I make a mistake, you don't blame me and beat me up. You kind of help me and learn from it. You listen to me if I have an idea. I feel like I can grow in this organization. So those are that's the way you retain and build great people. And that is, again, it's full circle, because as you do that, you start generating more organic growth of your business that comes from the way you want it, which is word of mouth, referrals. That's the kind where people call you up and say, when are you free? Not, hey, tell me about what you do. That's a whole lot more fun to already have somebody who's already sold on you, so you don't have to do a lot of the selling. And the whole circle begins by the way you treat each other. A great example, another industry that just demonstrates this, is the airline industry. And they've had a tough time over the last year and a half. But one company
almost as tough a time as somebody that's a professional speaker by trade.
Yeah, really. But one company over the last 45 years has blown away every other company in every dimension of the bottom line, and that is Southwest Airlines. And Southwest Airlines is another of those companies that has that kindness value proposition. And is having fun and moving people. That's what they do. Having fun and moving people. The average turnover rate in the airline industry is close to 30%. Over the last 45 years at Southwest Airlines, it's less than 3%. They've had 46 years consecutively of profitability in an industry where price of fuel has drawn some out of business. And most of all, people love to work there. That's what you want in your company. You want people, whether you have one employee or 20 or 100, what you want is for people to feel like when they talk about you to their friends, they talk about what a great company this is to work for, because that's going to go flying right back to the customers. They're going to get that same message.
Yeah. What we've covered so far is a little bit of why is this important? And are you actually, hey, you listening to this, are you actually thinking about who are you as a business? What do you represent? What are your core values? What do you want to be known for to your employees? It's an area that doesn't get nearly the thoughts and the strategic thought and the attention that it needs. So I think we've made the case of, you look at this example, you look at turnover here, there's a million reasons why this makes sense. Let's parlay into, well, what practically, how do we do this? Do we just wake up and say, I'm going to be kind today? And then we make it till 10 a.m. until the first issue with material delays. And then all of a sudden we fall off the rails and we're like, crap, I'll try again tomorrow. There has to be a better approach than that, Brian.
There is. And although part of it is true, part of it is make the decision, because what you focus on is what you create. And just to bring in kindness into your core and the way you view what you do each day. See, I really want to make sure that every single company, every representative of every company that watches and listens to your show recognizes that, yeah, you're in the remodeling business, but never forget you're at a fundamental business underneath that, and that is the people business. You are in the people business. So where's the starting point to start to build a culture that really embraces kindness? And it's what I call a kindness value proposition. And put it simple, it's an example again at Chick-fil-A. Theirs is a pleasure to serve. Every Chick-fil-A employee, hundreds of thousands of them, can tell you, who are we? What do we do? We're a pleasure to serve. They don't talk about chicken. Talk about a pleasure to serve. And it has to be short, clear, and it becomes kind of your GPS for every decision you make in terms of interaction. So every organization can start that. When I was running a large training company many years ago, we developed a kindness value proposition for our customers. We said we are champions of empowerment. Our job was to empower our customers. That was it. And every single decision we made had to fit that, or it was not the right decision. So the starting place for your company is best to do it with your team. If you have 10 people, get everybody engaged in it. Make it no more than 10 words because people won't remember it beyond that. But make it 10 words or less that brings in the concept of relationship kindness. And if you want fun, because fun and kindness are a great combination, that's kind of the macro starting place. On an individual level, what I encourage everybody to do, and this is where I kind of laughed at what you were saying, you just decide to be kind. Yeah, you do. All right. You can't necessarily be the CEO, can't necessarily be the COO, but starting today, everyone on your team can see themselves as what I call a CKO. And a CKO is a Chief Kindness Officer, and it's really about decision. And incidentally, there's more to it than that, because I have a foundational belief I've been teaching for 30 years. Everyone is a leader. Whenever anyone in your organization is talking to a customer, they are your organization. How do you show up every day? Big part of your leadership. What kind of impact do you have on people? Do you just kind of lift them up by who you are? Big part of leadership. How do you deal with adversity, with challenge, with change, with that 10 o'clock obstacle that just popped up? So everyone is a leader, but the key is to look at yourself and say, when does kindness matter the most? It matters the most when people are unkind to you. It's easy to be kind to kind people, but how do you deal with when somebody's unhappy, when somebody doesn't understand, when there's been miscommunication, when you've made a mistake? That's when the kindness element really comes into play. And I talk about the 7 habits of highly effective CKOs, Chief Kindness Officers. And it's 7 simple, clear, but eminently available to everyone ways to become a CKO. And the first is something that you do on your show with every guest. You're doing it right now. And it's the most important one of all, and it's to be fully present. Now, what does that mean? When you're fully present, 100%.
I mean, I was thrown off a little bit when my feed got thrown off earlier, but I was
right. Yeah, that's a little hard. That's the kind of test to pop in there. But it means when you're with somebody, you're fully with them. And what does that actually do? That says to that person, beyond words, the thing we want to communicate, whether it's to our team, to our children, to our customer. When we're fully present, we say to them beyond words, you're important. You matter to me. You're significant. And when people feel important, all right, they start to rise into their potential. They start to rise into relationship. And it's a simple but a powerful, powerful tool because we're so caught up in technology. We're moving so fast that we forget how important it is to just be present with each person, and that we actually get more done being present than when we're not present.
So pause there. 1, hold up your book. I know you got it there. You're a professional. ROI of Kindness. So you just said, and I've got 7. I'm assuming that the thing you just said of like, there's 7 key steps to kind of walk us through this. That's in that book. Yeah.
That's correct.
So the ROI of Kindness, go buy it for Brian. Look, he had a tough year. He's a professional speaker that had 80 engagements canceled with COVID. Help a brother out.
That's right. In 1 week.
In one week. That was
80
a tough week.
events canceled in 1 week, and they didn't come back all year. So bless you, my friend.
That was tough. Even that just gives a hint at, that's one example of how you can start to do this. I want to go back to, you said, a kindness value proposition. That's kind of the macro. Actually take the time with you and your team to share this. And I wanted to share something I've been playing with. We'll do a little workshopping here for a few minutes. One of the phrases that just continues to come back to me, a buddy of mine, actually, here's how I'll set it up. I had a client who, it was before I was just solely focused on remodelers, and it's an IT company. And I worked with them for about 10 years. I just kind of parted ways in a good way last year. And they had their core values and how we do it. And it's just 5 of those and 5 of those that just really embodied who they were. And Ari, the owner of the business, every meeting with three or more people started out by reading the mission, core values, and how we do it. Great people. I value and appreciate the individuals that make up our team. Communicate. 5P, proper person prevents poor performance. Like, I could go through and I pretty much have it memorized as an outside consultant because I heard it so often. And for a while I was thinking, this is just a waste of time. We've got so much to cover. My time's valuable. Your time's valuable. But over time, what I realized is, they actually thought through what these items were, their kindness value proposition, but maybe a little bit more expanded, who they were and what they stood for. And every single person on the team knew it. You went into their office, guess what was on the wall?
Oh yeah, there it is.
Right?
That's brilliant.
That's
brilliant.
Right. And they just embedded it into so many different things that they have. So one of the things that and then a buddy of mine a couple of years ago, he said, hi, Terry Simpson, in case you're watching, he said, you got any core values at your business, Kyle? And I'm like, well, it's just Bailey and I, and, I've got a couple other people that help. Like, I don't know. I just never really thought about it. But there's a word that just keeps coming back to me over and over, and it's serve. Serve them. Serve them. As a business owner, and I think a lot of business owners can fall into this, it's very easy, and is maybe a little bit of my human nature too, flawed human nature, might be like, it's easy to look at a potential client and put a dollar figure on them. And it's easy to say, well, am I helping them here so they sign up for that course? It's easy to slip into that. And that's when I'm at my worst. When I'm at my best, I am just flat out serving. And I don't care if you pay me a dime. I don't care if you pay me $10,000. One, I enjoy doing business like this. And two, it's proven that the more I just serve and help, the more it'll come back to me. So this concept of serving, being our kind of KVP, feels like it has some weight behind it, because how we decide how to behave, how to respond to people that are seeking our advice, how to just forget about, this is something I'd give a paying client, but they reached out to me and I'm just going to help them even though they can't pay right now. Is that getting at a little bit of that KVP?
Absolutely. And I love that you said service. Mother Teresa said service is love in action. And here's the key. When you're focusing on service, and two things come out of what you just said. Number one is, that's the thing that keeps coming up to you. So you own it. Right away, it has more value. That's why if you have a team, I encourage you to generate your KVP as a team, because the more that they feel that keeps coming to them, the more they're going to own it. The second is that when you focus, for example, on service and kindness, you're focusing on what you put in and allowing what happens to come out. My mentor, the man who wrote the foreword to my very first book, was the greatest coach of all time, in my opinion, and many opinions. He was my dear friend. His name was John Wooden. John Wooden was the greatest college basketball.
Like the John Wooden.
The John Wooden, yeah. He wrote the foreword to my first book, greatest guy. He never talked about winning or losing. He never said the words. Did he want to win? Oh, yeah. But what he focused on was success is peace of mind that comes from knowing you're given the best of which you're capable. Focus on your effort, your energy, your attitude, and your teamwork. And then a wink at you and say pretty good things will come out if you do that. In other words, when you focus on service, you focus on what you put in. And that's all you control. And you're focusing on controlling your controllables. That's where we get momentum. That's where we get confidence. That's where we get passionate, because when we try to focus on what we don't control, which is what comes back to us, we get frustrated, worried, scared, doubtful, and we get in that overwhelm and we stop. So great that you chose the word service, because it's an action word. Two, it's all about what you give, right? And it allows that natural reciprocation to take place, but you're not focusing on that. You're focusing on what you can give. And as a result, you're going to create much more word of mouth. You're going to create those referrals, but that's not where you're focusing. You're allowing those to happen by focusing on what you can do and taking that action each day. And as you said, with the example of that company you worked with as a consultant, the tremendous constant reinforcement is what starts to build that as who we are. That's what a KVP is this is who we are in relation to the way we deliver kindness.
Yeah. And I think the challenge as a business owner who's, whoever's listening to this, is if I walked up to your team and said, what are you guys all about? Like, what makes you guys different? Like, what makes you are? And if I asked your team member, your lowest labor guy in the field, just your runner and the guy that's just cleaning up, if I can ask him, and I can ask your lead carpenter, and I can ask your estimator, and they all have a similar answer, you're onto something. it means you're really starting to build a culture in your business. And going back to something that we mentioned early on, what I have seen, and I'm sure you have seen this too, is the stronger that is and the clearer that is, the easier it is to be an enjoyable place to work, to find for people to see where they can climb in your business. And when they're enjoying their work more, when they feel like they're really making an impact, when they buy into who you are, it is going to attract new employees. They're going to say, man, I'm working for a company that what he's about? Stinking yelling at us because we're over hours and we didn't do everything perfect. And he forgets about these 10 things I did right. That's what he's about. And we're not going to find great lead carpenters who are just sitting there idle and not working right now. They're going to move over from another company to our company. And if we have a really strong culture and who we are, it's going to attract them. They're going to even read it on our website, and they're certainly going to hear it from their buddy who they see at Home Depot who works for us and said, man, I really like my job. The boss is super kind and considerate and thoughtful, and he cares.
Yep. The number one reason why people leave companies is not because of money or benefits. It's because they have someone that they must interact with who they don't get along with. In other words, it's about relationship. And if you look as a leader to serve your team, that your job is to help them do a great job, right away, you're going to listen to them more. You're going to acknowledge when they do well. You're not going to blame them for mistakes. You're going to figure out what happened and move forward into the present. One of the 7 habits of a highly effective CKO is be a blame buster. Now, it doesn't mean we don't mess up, because we do. But blame, if you think about it in the context of time, is always about the past. So the second you go into the past, you go into blame, you're in the past where you can't fix it. And what blame busters do is say, what happened? What did we do? How can we learn from it? How can we do better now? You do that in your team, and your team no longer feels like that old game of whack-a-mole. They're the moles, where you pick your head up and whack it on top of it. When you're in a company that has blame, you don't want to stick your head out. You just put your time in, get through, and hope you make it to the next day. When you're an organization with blame busting, you're willing to say, hey, I think we could get better this way. And that's what you want from your team. You want your team to own their part of this team so that they have a passion for it. They're not just putting in a certain number of hours and heading out.
There's 2 of the 7 you mentioned, and I liked both. Maybe you picked the top 2. The other 5 are crap. But those 2
led me into that one.
Those 2 were really good. People, do you want them to go to Amazon to buy the ROI of Kindness, or you want them to go to ROIofkindness.com or what?
My own website, brianbiro.com, or inspirekindness.com. I especially want to do that because we give a percentage of every book that's sold to Kindness for Kids, which is all about trying to stop bullying and at a very early age, to make bullying something that is in the past.
Rock and roll. Inspirekindness.com?
That's correct.
Okay. So go there, people. Buy the book. What I've liked about, so a couple things I want to wrap up with. One, there's more to talk about. Maybe we can do this again. 2, I want to hear a John Wooden story.
You got it?
The only one I got right now is first day of practice, teach you how to put on socks. Yeah. I've heard that one before.
I don't know if you can see it on my screen, but those who can see my screen, the pyramid of success is behind me. That was his foundation.
Yeah, that's his thing. Okay. So I want you can mention your website again here before we wrap up. I want to hear a quick John Wooden story. And then if we can wrap up by you sharing, hey, if you didn't hear anything else out of what we talked about, hear this. And I want you to share that, and then I'll share that, and then we'll call it good.
Sounds great. Okay, Coach Wooden story. There's a million of them, but I'll give you one of my favorites. When Bill Walton was a senior, coming back, the National Player of the Year, probably one of the 2 or 3 greatest college players of all time, Coach Wooden had very few rules, but one rule he had was you had to be on time, that's for sure. But he had no facial hair. And the reason he said no facial hair was it felt like you held sweat more, and it would end up turning into a turnover. It would fall from your face onto your hands. Anyways, Walton walks into practice first day back going into senior year. And he's got these huge sideburns, of a goatee, a big mustache. And he looks at Coach and he says, Coach, with all due respect, sir, many of us are now over 21 and we think we should be able to wear our hair the way we want to. And Coach Wooden walks up to him, puts his arm around him, smiles at him and says, Bill, I have never been more proud of a player in my life. A man has to stand up for what he believes in. And we're really going to miss you. I'm really going to. 15 minutes later, those sideburns were gone till he went to Portland in the NBA. So John Wooden had one of the keys to being kind is to be able to disagree without being disagreeable, and he was the best. You asked about what's the one thing I would say more than anything else, and it really.
And time out. How did you get connected? Did you say he was your first mentor, like personal relationship, or just studying his stuff, or what?
When I grew up admiring him, I grew up in Southern California because he was such a gentleman. He was the opposite of the throw the chair kind of guy. Just a remarkable person, always giving credit.
You don't like Bobby Knight? Bobby Knight's like the epitome of ROI of kindness.
At least they got the letter I is in there with him. Anyways,
there you go.
When I was running that large training company, having grown up admiring him, I thought, what would be better than to interview the best of them all, the best team builder I ever knew. And so I called him up on the phone. Somehow I knew where he lived because that's where I had been a coach as a young man. And he answered the phone. I went and interviewed him. And for 2 hours, we sat and talked. And after that, we became friends. And as I say, he wrote the foreword to my first book. So that's how I got
cool. Very cool. Right. And then people can find you, give your links again. And then that last, yep.
It's just brianbiro.com, BrianBiro.com. And it's got the books there. It's also got the book that Coach Wooden wrote the foreword to, Beyond Success. So I want to leave with that secret behind the secrets is one we talked about right away. If you want to give one thing to your team, to your customers, to your family, above anything else that will make the biggest difference over time, it's to be fully present. Being fully present is something that we're losing sight of the ability to do because we're so technological. We're present with our phones, but if you go to a restaurant and you see everybody sitting at the table, nobody's even connecting anymore. They're just looking at their own cell phones. Remember what the message says. When you're fully present, it says to that person, you're important right now. John Wooden was, of all the things that John Wooden did, the thing that made him the greatest, in my opinion, was he was the most fully present person I've ever known.
It's because he didn't have a smartphone in that back then.
It could have been. When you were with John Wooden, you felt like you were the important one, like you were the star. And that's because he was fully present. And that's something we can decide to do right now. The past is history, the future a mystery, the gift is now. That's why we call it the present.
Ooh. How many times have you delivered? That was a good line. Is that the first time you've delivered that line?
Let me see. I think it's about 1,777.
Is that how you normally end things?
That's how I normally end my part about being fully present, but that's not how I end my event.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What I would say if we didn't hear anything else, I'm putting myself in the shoes of just the people listening and my clients and people in the remodelers community and just knowing how busy they are. And this idea of I got off the phone earlier today with one of my clients and he goes, that was good. I'm just kind of wore out. I'm just kind of, what do you have? I just wore out. Like things have just been so busy for so long. And, I think back a few years ago where the guy that's supposed to be motivating everybody, and Brian, you may have been here and we're supposed to always be go, go, go. And we're the motivators. I wasn't feeling very motivated. You could say I was feeling a little burnt out. And one thing that I realized when I kind of got myself out of that a few years ago was, I wasn't feeding myself any new thoughts, any new information. I wasn't consuming any content. And, one thought that I have here is, everything you've said, even those 2 points, were stinking really good, and if you buy the book, whether you buy the book or find an article or re-listen to this, grab one idea from it and just work to implement it. How am I going to build a culture? It's an intimidating thing. A culture of kindness, a kindness value proposition, big words. It feels like it's a big thing to take on. But like most things, it starts with the attitude and the desire to do it. And what you just said of, how you can start when you get home tonight and you're actually asking your wife how her day was, actually ask her. And look her in the eyes and pay attention and ask follow-up questions. Start there, start at home. And then guess what? Do that with your employee. Don't say, hey, how you doing? And not really mean it. So it can start with so many little things. And if something in here kind of sparked you and kind of lit you up, do it, follow through with it. And all of a sudden we start doing that day in and day out. We start learning some actual strategy on how to really embed it in our business. You look up at, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and you're building something. Any comments on that?
Inch by inch, anything's a cinch. There's another one for you. And that's really it. One step at a time. The answer to overwhelm is to do one thing, the most important thing. Just take one step and now you're at a different place, and you can see more once you've taken that one step, and step by step you'll move forward.
Good. I have one more thing. It was I thought the phrase was kindness. I texted my wife right before we started this. We were riding in the car the other day with Piper, our 12-year-old, and are you familiar with the musical Into the Woods?
Oh yes.
So Sondheim, my wife's a big musician. She loves the music, and it's a good movie that came out. And in the first song, Red Riding Hood is singing about her encounter in the woods, and there's a line that says, "Nice is different than good," and it always strikes us. My wife's like, "Did you hear that, Piper? Did you hear that, kids? Nice is different than good." One, without me saying anything else, what does that line mean to you?
Well, I think that what it means is that nice means, to me, what it really is about what we talked about, that it comes from you, that it's a choice. Good, that it's really about a choice we make. And that's what I want to get across about kindness. Kindness is a choice. We have a choice. We don't have a choice of what happens to us, but we have a choice about how we respond. So to me, it's that it's more active because it's a choice.
I like that. And then the thing that always comes to my mind is, we can be nice, but is it real? Like, are you legit behind it? Are you faking it? Right? You can meet a lot of nice people in the world that aren't good, so making sure that, this is really rooted in, like, when I passionately started talking about serving, like, when I'm at my best, that's what I'm thinking about. And that's how I work. And that's how I want to interact, but I'm not always there. I'm selfish. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about that. So to keep those, to really be true to who you are, and don't be kind for kindness sake and what's in it for me, but work to make it really what you want and what you want to build in your company. So I had to work that in, because that phrase kindness and nice.
I love it. Yeah. James Corden was in that movie, and so was Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep was there. Yeah. All right.
You are correct. And it was a good one. All right, my friend. Appreciate your time. Go to inspirekindness.com, buy his book, people. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.